right, so let's put the theory aside for a moment and look at some actual examples. And so what I've got is a Management Studio environment set up here where I have I've got a sample database, AdventureWorks DW 2008 R2 is our database here. So I'll be working with the SQL Server 2008 R2 version. If you're working with another version, like I had a question here about an earlier version, I'm going to see if I can't come up with another version of the file. If you need one, let me know. And because all of this should work, there's nothing that I'm doing today, even though I personally am using 2008 R2. There's nothing that I'm doing that's exclusive to 2008 R2. It will work in 2008, and it will work with 2005. So all of the MDX is the same. There were some differences between 2005 and 2008 with MDX in terms of optimizations. There were some changes made in the formula engine that will behave differently in the 2008 and higher versions, and differently means better. But all of the syntax kinds of things, all of the ways of thinking about MDX are the same. Is there anybody out there using 2005, by the way? I guess I'd have to dig for it, but I began this course with a 2005. I see one 2005 there, so I can try to find my 2005 version of this database for you. And Andy said he's got both, so I have a 2008 out there. So for Andy, then there's what you would really notice between the two is your 2008 might perform better with certain types of calculations than it would with 2005, and I'll be explaining the differences of that when we get to the optimization portion of this class on our last day. Oops, I'm looking at this wrong stuff here. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so what I have is in Management Studio, I've set up where I have on the left here, I have a window for my SQL queries, and on the right side, I have a window set up for MDX queries. Now, what I did, incidentally, for this was in my AdventureWorks database, I actually ran a basically a SQL script here to create a channel sales view. So if you're using AdventureWorks, you won't have this view, and you would need to, if you were going to follow along with me, you would need to create this particular view. And what it does is it really just simplifies things. And I do it because otherwise we're going to be doing some comparisons between SQL and MDX, and it would complicate things if I had to do it strictly based upon the natural structures in the database. So what I've done is I've got this simple view that takes basically 6 columns here. So we have the state, we have model name, we have the country name, we have calendar year, and then we're taking the sum of order quantity and the sum of the sales amount. Our base table here, some extra characters, but we have some a base table here, our factory seller sales that we're doing some joins out to our various dimensions, reseller, product, geography, and date, and grouping. Okay, so we're just creating this view, and the reason we're creating this view is because otherwise in every single query I'd have to be doing all these joins all the time, and it just gets cluttered in the space. So when we're working with this resolution, we're tight on space, so this just makes it easier to see, and it makes it more comparable to our MDX statement. So as we go through these queries, keep in mind that we've simplified the SQL side of things. Okay, so getting started with the SQL side, one of the things we have this use command here where I tell it what database I want to use. And then, of course, up in the upper left-hand corner, it changes the database, the current database for this window, to that database. So we can put the right context onto that query. MDX does not have a comparable command. When we work with MDX queries, when we go to create an MDX query, we will be prompted to connect to analysis services, and then we must select the database in the drop-down list. You can see I have a variety here on my machine. The one that I'm going to be working with is called AW. Now, if you've got the AdventureWorks, maybe not. I was thinking, could you replicate, do these queries against the AdventureWorks data warehouse one, the AdventureWorks sample database? And I think I've made some changes to this so that it won't work directly against AdventureWorks proper. So this is just a simpler version of AdventureWorks. It's based on the same base database, which is the AdventureWorks here. And we just got a couple of measures. So we'll learn more about this metadata tree a little bit later, but basically we have measures, and these correspond to those values, the sum of order quantity and the sum of reseller sales amount that we saw in the view. And then KPIs will skip, and then we have dates and geography and product and reseller dimensions. So remember those four tables that I joined to in the view then are the four dimensions that we have in our cube. All right, so that's just kind of our getting set up. Now let's look at a query. So if I start with a very simple query, relatively speaking, in T-SQL, I'm going to go ahead and select this and execute it. We can see that, and this is going against that view that I created, that we have a very simple query. It's just returning a single column, reseller order quantity, and it's summing up all of the values in this fact table. So remember that underneath channel sales, what is it really querying? It's querying the fact reseller sales, which has a column called reseller order quantity. So if I want to get similar results from my cube, we'll use a query that looks like this. Now I'm going to be going through a bunch of queries, and this is really just our focus is really just to compare T-SQL to MDX, and we're not as concerned with learning all of the intricacies of the language at this point. We're going to be coming back and focusing on various aspects of the language later. Right now our emphasis is really on comparing how is MDX different from SQL.